Welcome to this episode of Learning Fusion. In today's episode, we're going to talk about particles again, but we're going to cover the 3D part of particles. And it's going to be pretty short, so let's roll this intro and let's get into it.
We're learning fusion together. We'll learn 2D stuff and 3D stuff and particle stuff and compositing stuff, deep pixel stuff and tracking stuff, but not other stuff, but some other cool stuff, because we're learning fusion together.
So here we are in Fusion, and to be able to use our 3D particles, we first need like a 3D scene, or not firstly, eventually we need a 3D scene so we can see our particles in the 3D world. So we're going to go ahead and grab a 3D merge, and let's grab a camera so we've got a camera to look through. And let's grab our little render node so we've got our 3D render, and there we go. Stick it into our media out, and we've got our little 3D setup. And I'm going to go ahead and add some lights on this. So shift space, ambient light, and I'm just going to throw an ambient light so we've got some lighting. And I'm going to go to my render node here. I'm going to make sure I enable lighting and shadows. Now we can use particle systems within our little 3D here, and let me get this to where we can actually see what's going on. There we go. We can put particles in here so we can use particles in a 3D environment. And to be able to do that, we already talked about a particle system, and it's the same thing. You just bring it in like we did our 2D. So I'm going to bring in an emitter, and I'm going to bring in a P render, because we still need this P render to be able to render particles. Now, the only difference between our 2D and 3D is once I plug this into our little 3D merge, we lose the option to change from 2D and 3D. So for example, plug it into the merge, bam, it knows it's 3D. So there we go. Now our particle systems are going to be operating in the 3D environment. So let's go ahead and get some particles going so we can see what's happening. And if you see, we've got our particles, but I'm going to make some changes. Let's make this a point cluster so we can actually see it. And let's crank this up to 100. And let's give it some velocity there. 2.5. There we go. So we've got our particles moving across, and you notice they're, you can see them barely. Let's switch that velocity down to 0.25. How about that? There we go, 0.25. So you can see our particles are moving in our 3D world. Now on our emitter, we can change this location. Under our region here, this is where our translation and rotation and pivot is. So we can drag our little particles back so it's back there a little further. And let's move this on over. So we've got particles going across our little scene. There we go. So if we look at our little render node, we can't see particles because it's transparent in the background. So let's go ahead and add a shape here. So I'm going to bring in another shape for our background. There we go. We've got a shape. Let's go ahead and bring it to the back. And we're going to crank our size up so it's giant. Go to our material. And we're just going to make this black so we can see our little particles better there. So now if I go to our render, push play, now you can see our particles flying across there. You may or may not. They're pretty small. And I'm not going to change this to blob, meaning on our emitter, if I go to style here and I change this to blob, it may or may not crash my system depending on how many particles we got going, but it's pretty heavy in the 3D environment. I'm just letting you know because it's trying to process all those particles as 3D bits and pieces, or 3D particles. So it's pretty intensive on your computer, and it will shut down quite often. And that's why I've got it set to style as point cluster. That's very, very light on your system. But we can do other things. So let's say we wanted stars to be going across. So we could create stars. And to be able to do that, if you remember, we had our lesson on our little shape system. So we can hit shift space, S star, and we can bring in an S star. And of course, if we're using our vector shapes here, we need to have our vector render. So that would be shift space, S render. So now we've got our little star there. So if we look, there we go, we've got a star. And we can actually make this a star by knocking our points down. So there we go, an awesome star. And we can change our depth. let's go ahead and change our star color to be a bright yellow. There we go. So we've got stars. Now we want to bring the star as in a particle on our emitter system. It's pretty simple. All we have to do is go to our little emitter here. And firstly, what I'm going to do is I'm going to knock this down so it's not so many, because that again may shut your stuff down. So I'm just going to do 2. And I'm going to change my lifespan actually to incorporate like all this. And I'll show you here in a second why I'm doing that. But I'm going to change this to like 300 so it lasts 300 frames. And I'm going to leave my velocity and all that fun stuff. So we've got our little particles, but now I want my stars to be particles. So on my emitter, I can just go to my style, change that to a bitmap. And now I've got this little input, or I could drag and drop it in. But I'm just going to take my star, plug it into my bitmap, and there we go. We've got stars as particles. Pretty awesome. If I look at our render node, there we go. We've got stars going across, but they're pretty stagnant and not exciting at all. And we did talk about some of this rotation and spin, and I said I was going to leave it to our 3D part, and that's exactly what I'm doing. So we can change our spin on our little stars here so they're not all going the same. So we can change the X variance, we can change the Y variance, the Z, and the Z variance. So now you can see our stars are kind of changing. Then we can change our X spin, our variance is up, so it spins varying ways. So there we go. Now we've got our stars and they're actually spinning, and I can use rotation relative to motion if I wanted to. I can do that. Now, if you notice, you're not seeing much of a difference in our stars and like they're flipping there. And that's because it's always facing camera. If I uncheck this always facing camera, now our stars are just going to be randomly like kind of generated wherever. So there we go. We've got our stars spinning like crazy. And let's go ahead and go to our emitter, and let's bring this back a little further. So it's further back. Our stars aren't so giant. So there we go. We've got our stars flipping across, and it looks awesome. Now we could also, if we wanted to, add something in here for these stars to interact with. And it's pretty simple. If I go to our little merge here, I could add another shape in. So I could say add a sphere. But what I want is I want those spheres or those stars to bounce off my sphere. So after my emitter, I need a shift space, P bounce. And there we go. We've got a bounce. And if I go to my region and I tell it I want it to be a mesh, now I've got this little input of a mesh. So now I can input my little sphere, and it's going to bounce off that sphere. First, I need to make a sphere. So let's go ahead and plug this into our merge so we can see our sphere, which isn't a sphere yet. So we're going to go up here. We're going to make it a sphere, and let's make this a little smaller. Let's go to our material and let's make this a nice purple because we like purple. And we're going to bring this off. And as soon as I hit those particles, you notice it's bouncing off our particles. So if I go to our render, push play, you can see our little particles are interacting with that sphere based off this bounce node right here. So on my sphere, I could move this off a little bit so it bounces later. And there we go. And on our bounce here, we can change some of these settings. So we can change our spin or our roughness, meaning once it hits, how much is that going to spin or not. The roughness of our little sphere here or our bounce, the more we make it rough, the more it's going to bounce like in different directions. And we can add like our surface motion if we have surface motion going. So there we go. Now let's add a little spotlight so we can see these a little. So shift space, spotlight, spotlight. There we go. We're going to stick a spotlight in there. Let's go to our little merge and let's change our spotlight location. That's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to change my spotlight location. There we go. Bring it back. Bring it up. Let's go ahead and rotate that so it's facing down. let's look at our render to see what we got. Let's move this on the X. Let's rotate it on the Y a little bit. And there we go. We've got our little spotlight interacting with our particles and a little sphere that our particles are bouncing off. Now, if we want that to continuously run, meaning if we go back, we have to wait for those particles to spawn and go across. And I did have a few comments asking this question. If we go to our little P render right here, if we go down here, we have this pre-generate frames. We can pre-generate as many frames as we want. So since our little thing is 120, I could just say 120. So it's going to pre-generate 120 frames and it'll start out with our particles already there. So there we go. We've got our particles bouncing off our little sphere and it looks awesome and it's amazing. So that's using particles in the 3D world. So basically you create your little particle system and you put it in your 3D world and you use it however you want. So just treat it as another 3D element and you can do what you want with particle systems. And if I push play, you can see our particle systems are bouncing way off. And it's awesome. So there we go. That's particle systems within the 3D world within Fusion. I'll see you guys in the next episode.